Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're all having a good Saturday afternoon. I am, but unfortunately, again, we don't have any cards. I thought they were going to be here yesterday. I guess just post office being a little slow, but nonetheless, looks like, according to my eBay, that they will be here on Monday, so looking forward to that. So hopefully on Monday evening, we'll be able to do those card videos, or the videos of the blaster boxes that I've got coming in. But in the meantime, got a couple of small sets that I want to review real quickly. Have this set from 1998. Let's flip this out. 97. Apologize, 97. And it's the past 10 Rookies of the Year at that point for the Winston Cup series. And I really like this series. It's a little embossed, this word rookie back here. But it's a nice little set that I was able to put together over the years, and we'll just go over these drivers really quickly. Got Ken Bouchard here. Ken was, if you see, the 1988 Rookie of the Year, and he drove for Bob Whitcomb's team, and they ran really the whole year unsponsored, and they only had one top 10. If I remember correctly, it was in the spring Rockingham race. And things were looking pretty good then, and they just kind of became an average at best team, and would linger around 21st to about 25th to 30th in every race. They just didn't have the funding. Of course, this would be the team that Derek Cope would drive for 2 years later and win the Daytona 500 in with Purelator sponsorship. But during this time, Bob Whitcomb was just starting to grow his team. Ken Bouchard, who was the younger brother of 1981 Rookie of the Year Ron Bouchard, was just coming into his own. He'd been racing modifieds and been racing in the Busch Series, so he moved up for a year. Did fair or to average at best with the equipment that he had. And, you know, managed to sneak Rookie of the Year out of it. Our next one, 1989 Rookie of the Year, is the oldest ever Rookie of the Year, Dick Trickle. Of course, here he is pictured in the Heilig-Myers colors, but he actually ran for the Stavola brothers in a number 84 Miller High Life sponsored Buick. The season was started by Mike Alexander, and Mike was injured in the Snowball Derby in 1989 at Five Flag Speedway in Sarasota, Florida, or Pensacola, Florida. Mike did run the Daytona 500, but they called on Trickle to come drive his car at Rockingham, and he didn't start getting points till the third race of the year in Atlanta, which he finished a career-best third in that race behind Darrell Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt. But they went ahead and entered him for Rookie of the Year, and he ended up finishing, I want to say 15th or 18th in points. He had a really good year despite not being in the first race and the second race not getting any points. So he had a really, really good year, and he always ran good with the Stavolas. He'd come back to race for them in 1992 as well and finish in the top 20 in points again. 1990, Rob Moroso was Rookie of the Year, and he's the only driver to have posthumously been named Rookie of the Year. Of course, Rob, I won't go into a lot of details. There's enough information on the internet about it, but Rob was killed in a traffic accident late in the season, 1990. It was actually after the North Wilkesboro race in September. So you can go online. I won't talk about it here, but you guys can go ahead and throw it in your Google machine, Rob Moroso, and you can learn a little bit more about him. But he was the 1990 Rookie of the Year. 1991 Rookie of the Year was Bobby Hamilton. Here he is in his Richard Petty and Petty Enterprises colors. But in 1991, he was driving for TriStar Motorsports in the Country Time Oldsmobile. Bobby had 4 top 10s that season, including the season opening Daytona 500. He was in a nice battle with Ted Musgrave all year. It was a very close battle. Bobby was inconsistent in his running, although he did have 4 top 10s. I believe his best finish was 6th in the fall Dover race in 1991. Ted Musgrave, however, that year did not have any top 10s, but he was more consistent, usually running between 18th and 22nd. But Bobby would have a couple of good runs and a couple of bad runs, but in the end he ended up with more points and at this time, up till about a few years ago, the rookie points were a lot different than what they are now. And during this time, during the 90s, the rookies got points for the championship, but there's a separate rookie point system, and they would get points, but at the end of the year, there was a panel that actually voted on Rookie of the Year, as long as they were within 30 points of each other. If it was a 31-point margin or greater, then the Rookie of the Year was automatically decided, but in a case like this one, there would be a panel that they would, you know, do different things. How did they conduct themselves off the track? How were their performances? And so on and so forth. 1992, Jimmy Hensley, the second oldest rookie of the year. Jimmy didn't even start the 1992 season with a ride. I can't even remember who the 1992, the original candidates for Rookie of the Year were. I want to say it was Bob Schacht, who was driving a number 77 Canova-sponsored Buick. Maybe Kerry Teague, and there was a couple other drivers, but they just didn't have any solid candidates that year. Chad Little actually started the year in this 66 Trop Arctic car, but was released after Bristol, and they ran one race with another driver. I'm drawing a blank on who that was. And then they put Jimmy Hensley in the car at Martinsville. He put it on the outside pole and ran really well. And Cale Yarborough Motorsports decided to keep Jimmy in the car the rest of the year, run for Rookie of the Year, and here he is on a card with his Rookie of the Year award. And this was the uniform that he was wearing that year. 1993 Rookie of the Year, of course, Jeff Gordon. This was a nice battle. You had Bobby Labonte and Kenny Wallace were his other two main rivals for Rookie of the Year. All three drivers did score top 10s. Jeff Gordon was the only one to score top 5. Bobby Labonte got the first pole. He got the pole in the Richmond Fall race. Jeff got the pole at the Charlotte race in '93 in the Fall race. But Jeff did have 2 second-place finishes in 1993. His first one came at the Coke 600, and his second one came in the June Michigan race that year. And, of course, Jeff has went on to win a couple of races since then, and he now works for Fox Sports alongside Mike Joy. Jeff Burton, 1994 Rookie of the Year, driving for Jack Roush. Of course, Jeff was the 1994 Rookie of the Year, which was a huge class that included Jeff's brother Ward Burton, who drove for A.G. Dillard. You had Steve Grissom, who drove for Diamond Ridge Motorsports and Gary Bechtel. You had John Andretti, who started with Billy Hagan and ended with Richard Petty. You had Billy Standridge, who had his own car. And I know I'm forgetting one other driver. Jeremy Mayfield started the year with Sadler Racing, went to T.W. Taylor, and ended with Cale Yarborough. So it was a huge, huge rookie class in '94. Jeff had 2 top 5 finishes, both 4th-place finishes. The first one in the Atlanta race in the spring, the second one in the July Pocono race. Was it July? But one of the Pocono races, he did have a 4th-place finish. I believe it was the second one right before Indianapolis. So Jeff is now an NBC broadcaster, working alongside Dale Earnhardt, Steve Letarte, and Rick Allen on the NASCAR races on the second half of the season. 1995, Ricky Craven, he drove for Larry Hedrick Motorsports in the Kodiak Chevrolet that year. He did, 1995 was somewhat of a big rookie class. Ricky had, I believe, 5 top 10 finishes that year. Maybe his best finish was about 6th or 7th. I'm just pulling this off the top of my head. I know he did not have any top 5s, but his competitors in 1995 was Robert Presley driving for Leo Jackson. You had Randy LaJoie, who started the year driving for Bill Davis and was released mid-year. You also had Davy Jones, who started the year driving for the Jasper team. And I think there was one more candidate, then the name really is escaping me right now, but it was pretty much between Craven and Robert Presley that year. And Craven just kind of stepped out about midway, was really consistent, and got his Rookie of the Year. And the final card in this set, 1996 Rookie of the Year, Johnny Benson. Of course, Johnny was driving for Chuck Ryder and the Bahari Racing team in the Pennzoil Pontiacs. Johnny had a pole in Atlanta in the spring race in 1996. Johnny also led the most laps that year in Indianapolis during the Brickyard 400. I was there. That was an amazing race. And the last pit stop, he just, I don't know if the pit crew had an error or if he took 4 tires and everybody else took 2. But he ended up finishing about 8th in that race. He did not have any top 5s that season, but he ran super strong, very consistent driver. I think if this team would have been a little bit stronger, Johnny could have won some races. But overall, he had a really good performance. And unfortunately, he didn't have any competitors for Rookie of the Year. I believe Randy McDonald may have ran a handful of races, maybe like 3 or 4 races. But outside of that, Johnny, had a nice, solid rookie season. I think if he would have had, 2 or 3 other guys in there, like a Jeff Burton or a Ricky Craven, if he would have had this team in the '95 rookie class, it would have been close between him and Craven. I think he might have squeaked out just by a hair, but overall, Johnny did end up having a nice career. He is at this point, he was the 1994 Busch Series champion. Was I right? No, 95. He'd won the Busch Series champion the year before, driving for Base Motorsports, and about 8 years later would go on and win the Truck Series championship for Bill Davis Racing. So we're back at Ken Bouchard. Did have another pack of cards here that I wanted to do, but we'll save that one for another day. It's the 1991 Pro Set Legends. We'll go over this one another day, but just, wanted to make a quick video here for you guys. Excuse me. I wanted to make a video for you guys here since I didn't have anything new. But I hope you guys like this video. Let me know if there's if you enjoy these videos about doing these small set reviews. I think I enjoy showing you guys and talking about the history of the drivers involved. But anyway, we're still got a couple more subs, it looks like, today. And when we get up to 500, no, you've heard me say it before, we're going to do another giveaway at 500. It will be a relic giveaway this time versus a rookie card at 100. But as we get those sub numbers getting up, and we'll get there. It'll take us a little time, but we'll get to 500. But I do appreciate you guys the liking the videos, commenting, and even just watching them. I get to watch those little numbers go up on my view count, so I do appreciate you guys hanging in there. So thanks again. Enjoy your rest of your Saturday, and I will see you again tomorrow.